Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're kicking off our very first city deep dive using our brand new scoring system, and we are starting with an absolute heavyweight, Beijing. We're putting a common assumption to the test. Is China's massive modern capital actually a breeze for international travelers? Look, Beijing is globally famous, it's heavily visited, and it is absolutely packed with world-class infrastructure. But what really happens when you step off that plane? Today, we're cutting straight through the assumptions to find out just how easy navigating this megacity really is.
So here's the big question, right? How easy is it if you don't speak a word of Chinese? Beijing is undeniably one of the world's great destinations. But all that incredible futuristic infrastructure you hear about, well, it doesn't automatically equal a friction-free vacation. The reality on the ground is a whole lot more nuanced than you might expect.
And this brings us to the core contradiction of visiting this city. It can feel incredibly easy one moment as you're gliding smoothly across town on a pristine bullet train or grabbing a Didi rideshare. And then, surprisingly complicated the very next moment when you're staring at a Chinese-only mini program on your phone, just trying to figure out how to buy a ticket to a public park. To cut through the noise, we are putting China's capital through our Foreigner Navigability Index, or FNI for short. Now, just to be completely clear, this index doesn't rank a city based on its beauty, its rich history, or its popularity. It measures one thing and one thing only: purely how easy a city is to manage and exactly how much logistical friction a foreign traveler is going to face. Okay, let's dive into the scorecard. The FNI is broken down into 5 distinct categories: apps, transits, hotels, ticketing, and spatial layout, each worth 20 points. A perfect 100 means absolutely seamless travel. A lower score means a non-Mandarin speaker is going to face some real friction. We are testing the whole shebang, from paying for your morning coffee all the way to finding your hotel. Let's get right into Section 1, Digital Apps and Transit. These are basically the first hurdles you face when you land. For a lot of travelers, this is the biggest source of anxiety: paying for stuff. And the truth is, with international credit cards being largely useless outside of major international hotels, your entire trip relies on your ability to set up mobile payment apps like Alipay or WeChat Pay before you even arrive.
Here's the deal. Once you're actually set up, the payment system is beautifully seamless. The digital ecosystem is incredibly strong, whether you're at a fancy high-end restaurant or just buying a bottle of water at a corner store. But those initial technical hurdles of linking a foreign card, plus the fact that ordering food within these apps often means navigating submenus that are entirely in Chinese, keeps it from being perfect. You can use cash as a backup, sure, but digital is absolutely king here.
So, weighing that initial setup headache against the flawless execution once it's actually working, Payment and Mobile Apps scores a highly manageable 17 out of 20. Moving right along to our next category, transit. Beijing truly shines here. You've got extensive English and Pinyin signage on the metro, a super sleek airport express, and apps like Didi and Apple Maps work wonderfully. But you cannot underestimate the sheer scale of this place. Easy to understand does not mean short distances. You might know exactly where you are, where you're going on your phone, but the physical reality on the ground? Totally different story. The attractions are far apart. Simply walking underground to transfer between subway lines can feel like a genuine hike. And navigating those massive airport-sized railway stations takes some serious energy. It's not confusing, it's just really, really vast. But you know what? Even with those sprawling distances and those massive stations, the sheer quality, speed, and English accessibility of the transit network earns navigation and public transit a very impressive 18 out of 20. All right, Section 2, hotels and massive scale. Let's talk about where you're sleeping and how much you'll be walking. See, Beijing has an enormous supply of foreigner-friendly international brands where English-speaking staff will welcome you with open arms. But if you try to book budget accommodations or mid-tier local Chinese chains online, you might be in for a frustrating surprise. A lot of them legally cannot check you in. Why? Because they literally don't have the specific police registration systems required to process foreign passports. This little quirk requires some careful pre-booking. You can't just wander into a local budget spot and expect to get a room. Because of this necessary extra layer of research, accommodation lands a solid but somewhat cautious 17 out of 20.
Now, geographically speaking, Beijing is super straightforward. Unlike a 3D maze city like Chongqing, Beijing is built on a flat, grid-like system. We're talking incredibly wide roads and giant blocks, especially around central areas like Tiananmen Square and the Hutongs. You probably won't get lost, but just walking from a subway exit to an attraction entrance means your daily step count is going to be astronomical before you've even started sightseeing. The physical exhaustion of walking those massive city blocks, navigating wide avenues, and honestly just crossing the street is a very real factor. This brings the spatial complexity and walkability score to a 16 out of 20.
Let's move to Section 3, the ticketing trap. This is Beijing's biggest complication.
This quote really hits the nail on the head. Beijing has legendary, internationally famous attractions like the Forbidden City, the National Museum, and the Great Wall. You'd think visiting them would be a breeze, right? Well, this is exactly where the frictionless dream absolutely shatters for a lot of foreign visitors. Picture this. You have all your logistics perfectly sorted. Your visa is good, great hotel, Alipay is working perfectly, and you conquer the subway. But if you try to visit a famous attraction spontaneously, you're going to hit a brick wall. That is because of strict, mandatory advance booking systems that require real-name passport reservations and timed entries, which are very often run through Chinese-only mini-programs. And on top of that, major sites frequently sell out completely days in advance. You literally cannot just walk up and buy a ticket anymore. No way. This ticketing trap is an absolute nightmare for the unprepared traveler. It severely drags the attractions and ticketing score down to a harsh 12 out of 20. Without a doubt, this is Beijing's biggest weakness on our index. Finally, Section 4, the final FNI score. Let's tally up the results and see where Beijing lands. Looking at our recap here, we have really strong marks for apps, transit, and hotels. You can get around, you can pay, and you can sleep easily. However, that otherwise excellent experience is severely dragged down by that 12 in ticketing, the sheer difficulty of actually entering the historical places you flew all the way across the world to see. When we add it all up, Beijing earns a final Foreigner Navigability Index score of 80 out of 100. Now, this technically lands it in the green, easy category, but just barely. It sits right on the boundary between easy and manageable. So, what should you really take away from all this? Beijing is essentially a city of two realities. App-prepared planners who book their attractions weeks in advance, they will find it wonderfully easy. But spontaneous travelers who expect to just buy everything on a whim, they are going to deeply struggle. Beijing is easy to navigate, but it's not always easy to access. So, as we officially launch our FNI series and put Beijing on the leaderboard at 80 out of 100, the big question is, with cities like Shanghai and Chengdu coming up in our future deep dives, how long will Beijing actually remain at the top?